Hey up everyone. I'm sorry there hasn't been as much posted over the last month or two, but I have had to prioritise other work. I have to start with a disclaimer too. The footage contains shots of professional riders in close course racing and non-speed limited conditions. Do not attempt this at home. Today, I'm going to try and combine three of the things I've looked at on several occasions in other videos, because although any one of them can make a bike great, all three together will truly make a genuinely great bike. The first key point, as is often the case when I choose any bike, is reliability, because without reliability, it doesn't matter how good a bike is. It will, in my opinion, never be truly great. The second is speed, and to be clear, I don't mean that they are the fastest, but having a bike that is fast enough to keep you properly entertained is always a good place to begin. The third is the one that can often be overshadowed as dealers and sales reps try to sell us the newest, most powerful machines available. That one is price. And all these bikes are bargains when you compare them to any of the newer equivalents. Together, they make a list of truly great, fast, reliable bargain bikes that will mean you don't have to sell a kidney or rob a bank to go and have some real fun. Some are faster than any of us are ever likely to ride them, and others offer amazing bargains on the second-hand market. And yes, I'm looking at this from the perspective of UK prices, but I would hope at least some offer equally good bang for your buck prices wherever the market, but each market will have its own nuances. Before I start, I have to ask, if you do like the video, try to remember to like it and maybe even subscribe to the channel. I will leave the rest of the plug for the website, Rumble channel and the Ko-fi group till later on. But I do have to say thanks to all my loyal subscribers for sticking with me. Anyway, to today's bikes. And today I'm going to start with the smallest and one of the cheapest reliable motorcycle bargains out there. The Yamaha YZF600R Thundercat. The Yamaha YZF600R Thundercat isn't some shiny new beast fresh off the factory floor. It's a seasoned warrior, a veteran of countless miles and many track days. So why the Thundercat? Think of it as a slightly more user-friendly version of the fire-breathing R6. It's got the sporty DNA, but with a little more practicality thrown in. You can get a great used Thundercat for well under £2,000 now, and I've seen some go at under £1,000, which is an absolute steal for what you're getting. The Thundercat isn't a pure sports bike, and if you're planning on chasing down R1s on track days, you might be disappointed. But for real-world riding, the Thundercat is an absolute hoot. The engine is essentially a detuned R6 Mille pumping out around 100 horsepower, and that might not sound like it's much in today's world of 200 horsepower superbikes, but trust me, it's more than enough to put a grin on your face. You need to rev it to get that party started, but once you're past 6,000 RPM, the slick gearbox helps you keep it on the boil. Reliability here is Yamaha at their best, and these are built to last. The clutch can be a bit of a weak point, but parts are cheap and it's an easy fix. The engine is getting into its stride by 50,000 miles, and as long as they've been looked after, they will serve you well. The exhaust is prone to a bit of rust, and brake calipers can need a bit of TLC, but the build quality is top notch. This is old school cool. You get everything you need and nothing more. Decent brakes, a comfortable seat, a fairing that offers good wind protection, an engine that loves to be revved, and unbeatable value. The Thundercat offers sharper handling, better brakes, and greater durability than most of the bikes of its day. It's a fantastic all-round motorcycle that's reliable, fun, and affordable to ride. Don't let the age fool you, this cat's still got plenty of bite. The Thundercat isn't the fastest, but it wins on usability, comfort, and that fantastic engine. and owners show a love for the Thundercat that is undeniable. This is a bike with character, and a bike that will put a smile on your face every time you ride it. So if you're looking for a versatile, reliable and affordable motorcycle for under £1,500, the Yamaha Thundercat offers fantastic value for money. Next, we stay at the smaller end of the market, but don't let that make you underestimate this bike. The Suzuki GSXR 750 SRAD is a very special bike, and it has already carved its name into the history of superbikes, but when it arrived, it was a bombshell. It handles like a dream, and although as a track tool the stock forks are a bit soft, that's an easy fix. You even got a steering damper as stock, and although the 6-spot Chico calipers can be a pain in the proverbials to service if left unused, the stopping power is pretty incredible. Most will have had braided lines fitted by now, which was one of the few shortfalls, and early models were carburetor fed, but fuel injection arrived in 1998. Both were pretty great, and power delivery is peaky, but that's what makes it a fantastic track day tool, and it likes to be ridden hard. The finish was typical Suzuki, and the paint wasn't the best, but find one that's been well looked after, or look past the fading paint, and the SRAD is another reliable bike. There were some recalls on early models, but most will have been done, and although some might consider the SRAD a bit old hat, don't be fooled. These bikes are a cult classic for a good reason. They're a track day tool par excellence with a world of aftermarket parts available. The SRAD had razor sharp handling and enough power to tease the best superbikes. Keep it above 8,000 RPM and work the gearbox for its full effect. Regular maintenance is key on any older bike like this, but find a good one and they are simply brilliant. Find one of the ones with an owner who really knows the bike and you're on to a winner. They will be more expensive than the Thundercat, at between £3,000 and £4,000 now for a good one, but they will only go up in price now, and right now it's a buyer's market, so don't be frightened to ask for a deal. It says something about the SRAD when it is already more expensive than many of its newer brethren. Next we go to a bike I know very well indeed. It hasn't been out for a while, but my Triumph Daytona 955i is a true gem, and they are a bargain right now. Built from 97 to 2006, there were two distinct versions of this bike, and each group of owners will tell you that theirs is the best. The reality is, they are both great bikes, with a distinctive charm as well as a few quirks. I will say here, though, that these are not necessarily a bike for beginners. Triumph pushed the sharp steering geometry to its limit, and maybe even a little beyond that. They can be twitchy, and if not handled well, they have a tendency to bite back. The Daytona 955i was a super bike, but it arrived a little late to the party, and was never quite a match for the Japanese competition. However, the Daytona had something special, that gruff, rumbling 3-cylinder engine. The Daytona 955 wasn't trying to be something it wasn't. It was a Triumph, but it was the fastest production Triumph ever built up until that point, and it offered plenty of thrills. As with many bikes of the time, the plastic fuel tank can swell a bit with modern ethanol fuels, and although I've never had an issue, the SRAD clutch has always been a Triumph triple Achilles heel. Do look at maintenance schedules, whether that's been done by owners or shops, and to be honest, I think I trust most Triumph riders more than the dealerships to do a good job, so look beyond the service book. On the road, the Daytona 955i is a joy. They are planted, but somehow still eager to dive into corners. On the track, it will hold its own, but the Japanese fours will always have the edge with a rider who can really use the extra power. Although the big four pots will be ahead at the end of the straights, coming out of the corners the Daytona wins hands down. Acceleration in the hands of a good rider is akin to being fired out of a catapult. At some point, you will feel your knees clench harder as the front wheel starts to rise while you are still canted over, opening the throttle a little too quickly. The surge of mid-range torque can feel endless, and the rush of power as you climb through the revs is an addiction that's hard to shake. Try and find out most of the problems during production of the earlier T595, so by the time the 955i hit the scene, it was pretty well proven. The finish is durable, and they can be picked up for a real bargain price. Prices now mean you'll be able to get a decent 955 for around £1,500 if you look hard and are patient. Comfort's much better than many of the extreme sports bikes, and the Daytona 955i is a bike that rewards its riders with a unique and exhilarating experience. It's a rough diamond that's full of character, and I can attest to that myself. The next bike is a victim of its own success. There were so many sold that buying second hand now, you have a massive choice, and so prices are lower than they really should be. That bike is the Honda VFR 800. The Honda VFR 800 might not be the VF 750, but in its own right, it's a bike that has stirred hearts and taken riders everywhere on endless adventures. It isn't as fast as some of the bikes here on paper, but it's still far faster than most of the riders out there, and you get a level of comfort that's perfect when ragging around twisty country lanes. That V4 engine just sings, and power delivery is smooth and predictable with no surprises. Below 7,000 RPM, it's all business, pulling you along with a satisfying growl. Then the VTEC kicks in, and you get a glorious howl above 9,000 RPM that only the VFR makes. Handling is neutral, and it doesn't dive into corners, it glides through them. But don't let that fool you. It's as agile in the twisties as it is stable on the highways. Build quality is as good as the best Hondas, and it's one of those rare bikes outside of the Harley that has self-cancelling indicators. Reliability is simply legendary. VFRs are known for their dependability, often racking up serious mileage without any major issues. Yes, the regulator rectifier can still be a weak point, but many bikes use the same reg-rec with the same issues. Just change it or bolt it onto a heatsink for peace of mind. With 105 horsepower and 55 foot-pounds of torque, it isn't going to be the fastest here, but it may well last longer than all of them. The VFR 800 VTEC is a fantastic bike that can handle commuting, touring, spirited weekend rides and even the odd track day. It's a classy and capable machine that is definitely worth considering, especially as some of the crazy prices I've seen this year. £1,500 will buy you more with a VFR than it would with most bikes, that's for sure. Next we go back to Triumph, and you'll pay a little more than you would on the Daytona, but this is a newer bike. The Triumph Sprint ST 1050 graced the showrooms from 2005 to 2011, and for many it's the best bike Triumph have ever made. This wasn't just a sports tourer. Triumph engineered this bike to be an absolute weapon. It boasted the 1050 engine that many still consider the best of all the triple engines, and the chassis gave it truly sublime handling. The ride quality and brakes are fantastic, and although this was a big bike, it handled like a dream. It's easy to manoeuvre at low speeds, rock solid stable on a motorway, and surprisingly agile in the twisties. Yes, it's not a full-blown sports bike, but in the hands of a good rider, it will hold its own with most bikes. Triumph's 1050 Triple has smooth throttle response with plenty of low-down grunt and a screaming top end. As with the Daytona, maintenance is key, and most Triumph owners do cherish their bikes, so finding a well-maintained used example shouldn't be too hard. It's often compared to the VFR 800, and to be honest, the Triumph was a better bike in most ways. Triumph had a big catalogue of extras too, So look for a bike that's had anything you want already added, and you'll save even more money. It will still keep up with most things on the road. The Sprint ST1050 is a comfortable performance bike with an engine and chassis that are in many ways in a class of their own. I've seen enough 100,000 mile Sprint STs being used year round in all weathers to know the bike's durability, and it's an exciting and capable bike that will stand the test of time. Do check the rear suspension linkage and the chain adjuster, but most owners dote on them. If you are looking at a neglected one, it's best to walk away. A good one will come along soon enough. £2,000 is where prices for half-decent bikes seem to start, and for £3,000 you can get a fantastic bike that's been truly loved. The Triumph Sprint ST1050 is a forgotten hero, a bike that offered superbike-like performance with all-day comfort. So if you're in the market for a fast, practical bike with some real character, you could do much worse than look at the Sprint ST. The next motorcycle may surprise some, and I know there will be others who just say never, but I've talked about the Ducati ST2 before, and if you want a bit more bang, the Ducati ST4S may be the curveball you've been looking for. Both the ST2 and ST4, produced between 1996 and 2003, are bikes that offer a fantastic blend of sporty handling and comfortable touring ability. The rider's seat is more comfortable than the pillions, but it's better than it is on most of the modern equivalents. The ST4S has a retuned engine from the 916 and better suspension too, so that is the one to look for in my opinion, but they are all great bikes. Reliability is often a concern with Ducati, but the ST2 and ST4 are solid as long as they get regular maintenance. They offer great value for money on the used market. Remember, these bikes are meant to be ridden, not left gathering dust in the garage. A full service history is something to look for when buying any used Ducati, and these are no exception. The ST4S wins on the performance and handling, and it will eat up miles effortlessly while leaving many sports bikes in the curves. They're not perfect, but these are Italian bikes that can provide years of fun. So if you're looking for a Ducati V-twin bike, the ST4 might just be worth considering. At a dealership where they can just be used as a crowd puller, you might see prices like £4,000, but on the open market I've seen unmarked examples of the ST4S model go for under £2,000, and that's one hell of a lot of bike for the money. Again, look for one of the bikes that was loaded with extras from the showroom. They are the real bargains. Check that belts have been done regularly, and it doesn't always have to mean stamps in the book, but I would say look for 1 or 2 owner bikes. People who have kept the bikes longer term have an extra incentive to avoid breakdowns. Next, we have a true legend of the sports bike world, and I have to get specific on this one, because the Series 1 bikes are already going up in value and are genuine collector's bikes. But in 2002, we got a new generation of the Honda CBR 900RR Fireblade, and this was the last Fireblade designed by the legendary Tadeo Baba. In my opinion, this Fireblade represents a sweet spot in sport bike evolution. Later models like the CBR 1000RR might be faster on the spec sheet, but they gained weight and lost some of that raw connected feeling of the earlier bikes. With 149 horsepower on tap and a weight of just 168 kilos, it will launch you down the road like a ballistic missile. Think about it. It weighs in at less than a lot of the modern 600s, and that makes it an absolute joy to throw around corners. It gives you that pure, unadulterated feedback that makes riding fast so addictive. The Fireblade's handling is legendary even when pushed to its limit. It pulls hard through the rev range, and although it can take a bit of finesse to get the most out of it, it will still outperform all but the best riders. This masterpiece of motorcycling history is now as cheap as it will ever get. Considering the performance and the smiles you will get out of it, the Fireblade offers a visceral riding experience that's hard to beat. No electronic clutter with this bike. It will take respect to master, but the rewards will never get boring. The blade is pretty practical for a sports bike too. The rider's seat's spacious and the passenger even gets a good grab rail on the pillion seat. The mirrors are actually usable unlike most, and there's even some handy storage under the seat. Many consider it the best Fireblade ever made, and it's easy to see why. So if you're looking for a thrilling, reliable and affordable sports bike, the 2002-2003 Honda CBR 900 Fireblade is a true classic. A bike that embodies the pure spirit of riding, and with prices for a good one now below £2,500, the Blade is always worth a look. Be patient and you may find one for under £1,500 because they do come up. And if you get one, it might be the best £1,500 you ever spend. Next, we have a true monster. The Kawasaki ZZR 1200 promised to bridge the gap between the sporty ninjas and the plush tourers like the Voyager and Concourse. But it had to take the old ZZR 1100's crown as the ultimate high-speed tourer. At its core was the ZRX 1100's liquid-cooled inline-4 engine, but the ZZR had bigger 40mm downdraft carbs and the pistons from the ZX12R. With a rebalanced crankshaft, this gives you a spicy mix of usable power across a massive rev range. Kawasaki beefed up the chassis for better handling, and the steering geometry was more aggressive than the Busa or the Blackbird, making it more flickable, and it defied its weight in the curves. Despite a reinforced steel subframe that made carrying passengers and luggage more practical too. Suspension was taken care of by big cartridge forks with adjustable preload, while the rear shock offered remote hydraulic preload adjustment and 4-position rebound damping. The ZZR 1200 also got a bigger fairing and windscreen than the ZZR 11, and a bigger 600-watt alternator was used to make sure the bright multi-beam headlights and integrated turn signals had plenty of power even when extra gadgets were added. Kawasaki created a more relaxed riding position, but the key here was that engine. It could flatten your eyeballs with its brutal acceleration, and in the showrooms they said 158 horsepower at the crank, and on a dyno it would churn out over 140 horsepower and around 168 newton meters, or over 120 foot-pounds of torque. On smooth sweeping turns, the ZZR felt like it was on rails, but it entered a crowded market and it didn't sell as well as it should have. Good grab handles, plenty of legroom, no vibrations, practical storage under the seat, and a 6-gallon tank made it a powerhouse with a decent range too. It was a bike designed for the Autobahn, and the ZZR 1200 never sold well enough. But they were a great bike and are such a bargain now that you will have some money left just to keep filling that tank and heading on to the next stop, wherever that might be. Prices on these may shock you now when you consider what you're getting. The engines are never overstressed because they have so much power in reserve, and overall build quality was great. Mix that with owners who want a reliable touring bike and you can see why these bikes last so well. £2,000 is where I would start looking, and I saw one very tempting low mileage fully serviced bike go recently at under £2,500 that looked like it was straight out of the factory. Remember, never be frightened to walk away after making an offer. Next, we have another legend. The Series 1 Aprilia RSV Mille is a bike that's been turning heads and sparking debates for years, but the 1998-2000 Aprilia RSV 1000 Mille is a case of pure engineering brilliance that won't break the bank. This is a purebred sports bike with stiff suspension, but on smooth, fast roads, it's a perfect blend of ferocity, stability and agility. At its heart is one of the most glorious engines ever built. The 60-degree V-twin is a compact dry-sump powerhouse that embodies the Rotax name. At low revs, you get that beefy V-twin grunt, but when you hit the mid-range, it pulls like a rabid rhino and just carries on delivering power through the red line and beyond. Now, let's be honest, Italian bikes do have a bit of a reputation, but the Mille actually holds up pretty well, especially compared to the Ducatis of the same era. They aren't without flaws, but the engine will clock up serious mileage without complaint. Listen for noisy sprag clutches and check for electrical gremlins, and remember, the Aprilia community are strong. The Mille offers incredible value now, and there are some serious bargains to be had. 128 horsepower might not sound so much now, but with a lightweight aluminium twin-spar frame, Brembo brakes and fully adjustable suspension, you get a serious performance package. With prices now starting at under £2,000, you can get a storming bike that will go faster than most of us would ever dream of, if we're honest. £3,000 would be considered a high price, but look at what you are getting, and if it's in showroom condition, it might still be worth it. Prices will never get any cheaper. The Aprilia RSV 1000 Mille is a bike that will put a grin on your face every time you twist the throttle, and if you take the plunge, you'll be rewarded with a riding experience unlike any other. Next, I'm going to look back at a bike that many underestimate, and in some ways we go back to the beginning of the video. You see, the Yamaha Thundercat had a bigger, faster brother. That bike was the Yamaha YZF 1000R Thunderace. The Thunderace roared onto the scene between 96 and 2003, and it could seriously shift. They are easily overlooked, but for the money they offer incredible performance. Think of it as a more comfortable R1. It's old school in the best way possible, with a decent pillion seat, a big fairing that'll keep you comfy on long, fast rides, and even plenty of luggage mounting points for those weekend trips away. These were the first Yamahas graced with the fabled blue spot calipers that were used on the R1 and many later Yamahas, and gave you two-fingered stopping power that puts many newer bikes to shame. The YZF 750R derived chassis was sharp and years ahead of its time. The bike had a broad, comfy seat, less extreme riding position, and a big protective fairing for more comfortable rides. Yes, you can scrape the undercarriage if you get too enthusiastic in the twisties, but this thing was raced in the Isle of Man TT, so it's got plenty of go. You've got an engine that was the next stage of the fabled FZR 1000's development, and although 147 horsepower might not sound earth-shattering in today's world, the wide torque curve will remind you of bigger bikes, and it is still far faster than most of us. Bikes that have seen a lot of winter riding can suffer, but mechanically these bikes are solid and proven. One thing to check is that the exit valve is working, and it can be a bit of a pain, but keep it clean and lubricated and it'll keep the bike singing. They do drink a bit of oil, but just keep an eye on the levels and top it up when needed. Fuel capacity is a decent 19 litres, seat height is a manageable 795mm, and it weighs in at just 198 kilos. Compare that to the modern era, and it sits closer to the weight of the full-on sports bikes than to the Tourers, that is for sure. Suspension's fully adjustable front and rear, and with a strong engine, sharp brakes and easy handling, it's a dependable and capable bike with speed, stability, comfort and a good tank range. Power delivery is relentless, and my only gripe would have to be that it would be better with that 6th gear that we had always called for since the FZR. Overall, The Yamaha YZF-1000 Thunderace is a fast, powerful, comfortable and affordable sports tourer with a touch of class, and it'll keep you grinning from ear to ear as you eat up the miles. This is another bike with prices starting at under £2,000, and I've seen showroom condition bikes with relatively low miles go for under £1,500 recently. They will go faster than most of us can, and so you get that raw feeling of all the power with no electronic tomfoolery in between you and the bike. So what is there not to love? No, it's not an R1, but it is a lot comfier, and it's still as fast as lightning. Last on the list today, we have a bike that can be picked up for stupid money now. Once the fastest bike in the world, that bike is the Kawasaki ZX-10B Tomcat. The 1988 Kawasaki ZX-10 wasn't just another bike. It marked a turning point for Kawasaki after a bit of a mishap. Prices now start at just under £1,000, and even the best will struggle to find a buyer wanting to part with more than £1,500 for one. So the bargains are out there. The GPZ-1000RX never quite made it as a replacement for the beloved GPZ-900R, but 2 years later Kawasaki rolled out the ZX-10. The ZX-10B would cruise at a relaxed 70 miles an hour all day long. It wasn't the razor-sharp superbike that modern ZX-10R is, but it was a ballistic, comfortable mile muncher with a hidden beast waiting to be unleashed. The 997cc four-cylinder engine purrs like a kitten at low revs. The fairing and tall screen keep the wind at bay, and the wide seat and plush suspension make for a surprisingly comfortable ride. But a quick twist of the throttle and the ZX-10 surges forward with a rush like the wind and the roar of a tiger. This bike may be old, but it's still got plenty of punch. The engine was never the weak point of the RX, but nevertheless Kawasaki pulled out all the stops to give this thing as much power as they could. They bumped up the compression ratio, lightened the internals, redesigned the valve train and enlarged the airbox and valves. The result was around 137 horsepower at 10,000 RPM, and that was a 12 horsepower jump from the RX. Some UK bikes were restricted to 125 horsepower, but swapping the carb tops for the ZZR11 ones released the full power quickly and easily. But the game changer was the chassis. The ZX-10 was Kawasaki's first true twin-spar aluminium frame. It was lighter and stiffer than the RX's steel chassis, and with thicker front forks and a larger 17-inch front and 18-inch rear wheels, it transformed the ZX-10's handling. It was also 16 kilos lighter than the RX, and even 6 kilos lighter than the GPZ-900R. But it wasn't a true sports bike. I would say it was the first in what became a long line of truly legendary high-speed bikes that would now be called hypersports bikes. It was more at home on the open road for weekend trips away with a passenger than on a track. The ZX-10 ate up the miles with a poised ride that was both fast and comfortable. Sitting on the bike, it feels tall and positively roomy by today's standards. One American magazine clocked a full-power ZX-10 at 168 miles an hour, and you can see from the Autobahn footage at over 260 kilometers an hour that sounds about right. The ZX-10 always inspires confidence when it comes to high-speed stability. It's a practical superbike. The Kawasaki ZX-10 Tomcat might be a blast from the past, but it's a reminder of a time when sports bikes were more practical and comfortable as well as fast. I do have to add some honorary mentions at the end today. Both the Honda CBR 1100XX Super Blackbird and the Yamaha FZR 1000X could be on this list. Both are amazing bikes, and I've featured them elsewhere. The The Super Blackbird and the X-Up have already featured in the bargain bikes of the 90s and the fastest bikes of the last 100 years videos, and both have reached that point where prices have begun to turn a little. Many of the bikes here will become future classics, and these two are no exception. But as always, I have to stop somewhere. Let me know what bikes you would have included in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the other videos linked in the description. Thanks as always to everyone, but especially the BAREBONESMC family who support me with donations to make this all possible. Try and remember to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Sharing the video any way you think people would be interested helps us a lot too. And if you would like to help us to stay truly independent, you can make a one-off donation or join our group of monthly subscribers on the Ko-fi link on screen and in the description. Monthly subscribers get access to a private group where I share videos I can't screen on YouTube, and people who make a one-off donation will get exactly the same access as the monthly subscribers. It just resets after 30 days. That means for a minimum donation of just £1, you get to see if you think the extra content is worth more than £1 a month. And if you do, you choose the amount you can afford to chip in each month. Remember, we make the best biker t-shirts too, with original designs throughout. We have hundreds of the best biker t-shirts anywhere. Take a look around the shop to see what's on offer. We have quality t-shirts, graphic print t-shirts and neck gaiters, all available worldwide. Whatever you ride, there's something for everyone. And if you can't find what you want, just drop me a line. Custom work is not a problem. Links to the main website and the Redbubble shop are in the main description. Thanks as always to all the supporters for your help keeping the channel going. You are BAREBONESMC. Have a great week, and always remember, keep your spanners close and your keys even closer. Ride free, everyone.